All right, everyone, welcome to the weekend market wrap up where we sit and we go through Forex, we go through Bitcoin, we go through the regular stock market. We try to figure out what potentially could happen going into next week, and it's a good time to do it with all the insanity going on now. Another great week with some great pullback plays for the StatsEdge Pro people. If you haven't signed up, make sure you go and do that in the link in the description below or my bio, or just go to StatsEdgeTrading.com. And to make sure you don't miss a video, there's a free email sign up there as well where I'll send out videos like this to you guys. So without further ado, we're just going to pop right into it. Let's see if I'm going to do this right the first time. I did it. Awesome. We're not going to start with Swiss franc. That's just a little trade I'm taking here. We're going to always, as we always do, start here with Bitcoin. So crypto, Bitcoin. And a weekly chart. More of the same, really, when it comes to Bitcoin. Full disclosure, on a shorter term time basis, I am in a little bit of Bitcoin, just leaning against this low right here, just taking a trade off of the hourly chart. As we kind of broke this lower trend line, I saw this, right, 3 points of this trend line, and we broke out. As we broke out here, I bought some, right, my stop's going to go under this low right here. So if I'm right, maybe slowly we grind up. But just, again, I always try to tell you when I'm in a trade. I just think it's the honest thing to do. So, all right, on the weekly chart, however, essentially what we're just looking at is this prior high right here. That's roughly this zone. This is why one of my favorite sayings about support and resistance, you draw it with a crayon and not a pencil. We broke out of that zone, spent some time in, looked like the world was coming to an end last week. Talked about this massive bottoming tail that we had right here. So far this week, again with 2 days left, based off of this one, we have an inside bar and really a tiny inside bar after that. So could just be the market digesting information. We'll talk about when we go over to the regular stock market that I am not concerned, but a little bit miffed about why we are seeing such dramatic strength in the stock market and in some of the areas of the stock market, but not in Bitcoin. So generally speaking, not to upset anyone, but generally speaking, Bitcoin is a risk asset. And essentially just means that people buy Bitcoin when they want to take on risk, and they buy gold or bonds or something when they don't take on risk. It's not an inflation hedge. It didn't do amazingly during inflation. It's not a store of value because it moves so much. It's not a currency because, right, again, it moves too much to be currency. It is a risk asset. People buy crypto when they want to take on risk. The fact that the markets are rallying, which again we'll get to, and Bitcoin isn't, makes me a little bit wondersome because generally speaking, you see those two move together. Also going to take a look here at Ethereum. Again, relative weakness of Ethereum is continuing. We are still under this zone right here. So it's seeming like Bitcoin is king, a flight to safety, you could say, in the crypto space. But Bitcoin's definitely king here, with Ethereum showing this relative weakness. Now, just going into a couple things. Let's start here with the dollar index, DXY. We continue to sell here. Looks like we could break this low of this bottoming tail, which would be bearish. Generally speaking, that's going to be good for stocks, but that correlation's kind of broken at this time. I'll be interested to see what happens when we get to this kind of 101. We're at 102.5 right now. If we get to 101, 101.5, I think that's the interesting zone that we need to look at in the dollar. Now let's take a look here at FX, and we're going to start with gold making new all-time highs. So all-time weekly closing highs, all-time highs period. In gold, you can't be bearish when that occurs. Talked about this range right here and how I thought this range may continue for a length of time. It didn't, and it broke out. So gold's looking great. Again, I still own some on this longer term play. Obviously, I would like to own more. Silver, just can't get it going. Nice, good day today, and it's fighting this prior zone right here. So I am interested in silver for potentially a catch-up play, but the relative weakness definitely can't be slept on. The fact that gold is hitting new all-time highs and silver still can't get off the bed, I think that's something we got to look for. Euro pound is something that I I'm watching here because we broke down under this zone right here. We broke under that zone, and then we bounced up to it. We put in a little couple topping tails in the weekly chart. Looks like we could roll over here. You see I have a downtrend line marked. I'm looking to see if we break that downtrend line to push this name lower. Just something that I like to play as a nice kind of quick scalper on a lower term time frame. Then we have to look at the yen. Actually, let's just do the yen futures. Yen futures, Japanese yen. So massive spike here in the yen. This was the whole reverse carry trade thing that tanked the market. Topping tail last week, some continuation this week, but just looks more kind of digestive in nature. So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to take a look at doing is just grabbing an anchored view up right here, plotting that in right here. I guess the volume for the, oh no, there it is. So if we start pulling back here on the end, this is the area I'm going to take a look at, this 0.00661. If we can get some support there and we can hold and we can look to push higher here, again, that's what I like to see on the yen. So that's what I'm watching if this continues. Now, again, we have this high right here. This collapse was the Bank of Japan defending its currency somewhat, but mainly it was this area right here. This was where the real first intervention came in. So if we come back to that area, which we're lining up with that anchored VWAP, to me that's interesting because that's a massive area of support or resistance because we have the Bank of Japan that's fighting in that area. So it makes sense that the market would try to defend that. So over here to Trade Ideas, which is where I do all of my stock research and trading. And we're going to take a look here, starting with the SPY on the daily chart. Again, just looks great here on a daily chart, but we're going to start here on a weekly chart. And we had a gap down, and it came up to close the gap. So really, it's funny, if you take this, and let's go over to... and this is why we use candlesticks for more information. Because if you just went to a line chart on the SPY, it looks like that last week was nothing entirely because right, close to close basis, we didn't really move at all. So there is the candlestick, just rocketed this week. We are getting close to these prior highs. I'm going to take a look here at the daily chart. This is kind of what I'm looking at with these prior highs, this prior resistance that's happening. Let's just draw this in. That's happening right up here. And then this support that's happening right down here. If you caught me on Trader TV this morning, I talked about how the election years, generally speaking, get choppy around this time until the election is over. That is something I'm watching very closely because if that's going to continue, then we are inside this range that becomes very interesting as well. So we need to be ready for chop, and I'm going to continue to trade it as is. You know, we had a couple good trades in the StatsEdge Pro where we are using different algorithms, and one of those, right where I was looking at, I can go INDO. Nope, INOD. I was like, that doesn't look right. That looks better. Where it was pulling back, and this area here is where the algorithm suggested a buy. Took a little one there. We had a nice little pop and HYLN. The same kind of thing. These aren't insane, but here from 180 up to $2, we're just taking these little revision to the mean, these pullback plays every time we can, because that's what the market's giving us, and that's what I think I'm going to be focused on until the end of the year. Could be wrong, market could just smash new highs, but started that rant basically by saying as long as we are inside this range right here, I'm going to expect some sort of chop. We're really having this FOMO rally that's going on right here that we have to pay attention to. If we look at the RSP, so the RSP is an equal weighted version of the S&P 500, so it's telling us how the overall market is doing and not really favoring those big tech names, and it's doing fantastic. We're getting close to these highs right here, so it's actually a little bit relatively strong than the S&P 500. So this isn't just big tech bouncing back, it's people buying a lot of different names. Mid caps not doing as well, and then if we go to small caps, small caps dramatically underperforming. So just like it's been all year, favoring large caps. However, there's some diversification coming from the Mag 7 or whatever they're calling them this time. I wanted to take a quick look at DBCs. This is a commodity ETF, just showing that commodities are continuing to trend lower, where technology, if we look at SMH, is continuing to push higher. So just again, more of the same. Large cap technology type names are doing well, but just by looking at this RSP performance, that's getting spread out and distributed amongst a lot of those large cap names, right? It's not so much just the big names controlling everything, but as soon as you go down the cap scale to the mid caps, or you go down to the cap scale of the small caps in particular, you can see how far they are from this high comparison to the RSP. A couple things of note: UNG, natural gas, is very interesting. If we go out here, I'm still watching this zone right in here, which is kind of 14-ish, give or take. Big bounce from there, came back, nice rounded bottom under that support, and a nice bounce from there. So I had a couple good days on this trade. Now I'm probably about back to even on it, but we're just playing against this zone. So if that continues, it's going to be something I'm going to watch. Last but not least, China continues to soar. And this is one that I talked about, the relative strength of this during that kind of Japan collapse was a big deal. If I just put that right there, this anchored VWAP, it shows the average market participant from the lows. We came in, we held that, we had a really strong week. So I'm going to watch this on FXI. I talked about this last week, and I'm going to continue to keep an eye on it. This week is names like Alibaba, where I was buying potentially this drop under this trend line right here. We've bounced out of that, and we continue to go here. We keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on things like TAL. It's not doing as well. TME is something that's doing horribly as well. So I wanted to show, that's what I want to talk about, KWeb. So KWeb isn't doing nearly as good. Look at it relative to its 200 period moving average versus FXI. And FXI being well above its 200 period moving average. So just like we're seeing in the US markets, the Chinese markets seem to be very focused on this whole large cap area. So we're getting a little oversold on the SPY in the short term, in the markets on the short term. So I need to just wait, and that's kind of what I'm going to be doing, is waiting for more pullbacks to occur, waiting for pullbacks to buy, buying dips, selling rips, playing that kind of back and forth momentum. As always, I appreciate you guys coming by. I appreciate you hearing out my thoughts. I appreciate you going to StatsEdgeTrading.com, signing up for the free email list, of course, checking out StatsEdge Pro if you want to start trading with a provable edge. And I will see you guys next week.